it's going to rain, but of all of the places it could rain, 80% of them are going to have rain. It's not 80% chance of rain. It's just
80% participation. Yes, participation.
Precipitation. It's 100% going to rain, but it's only going to rain over 80% of the area that it's due to rain over.
Yes. Anyway, should we cast?
Sure. I've done no prep, but I will.
And you think I have? We can bullshit. It's fine.
Okay.
You know, I normally prepare for this. He says, like maybe 80% of the time. Hello and welcome to Atypical Podcast, a podcast where we look at life from a more atypical perspective. My name's Simon, he, there, your host, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host.
What's my name? They, them.
Indeed, and it's just two of us again this week. So it's been a bit of a funny week here at Atypical Tower, certainly for myself. Anyway, I've had to move house.
Moving house is horrendous.
Yeah, it is a tad stressful. It's just a little bit stressful. It's been a busy few weeks for me, really. I mean, we went away to a festival, my very first festival as an adult, which as a neurodivergent person was interesting. It was quite a lot. We might circle back to that one in a bit. But that sort of set me up then for a good couple of weeks of moving house, which I mentioned, you know, moving house and being stressed to a colleague who went, "Oh yes, it's the most stressful thing you can do in life." It's like, when did you last move house? Oh, 21 years ago. It's like, are you likely to move house again anytime soon? Oh no, I own my house. Why would I move? I've moved 4 times in the last decade. Oh, well, you must be used to it by now. You just told me it is the most stressful thing a person can do.
It might have been the most stressful thing that you could do 21 years ago, but it's certainly... It's certainly not the most stressful thing in scare quotes that I could possibly do. There's a lot more in modern life that, certainly for neurodivergent or just like everyone, neurotypical, neurodivergent, doesn't really matter. That is way more stressful than moving house. I think this might be the slant that I have in it, but for me, moving house was, because I've done this 5 times in the last decade, maybe
that's even more than me.
5 or 6, and some of those were rather rapid. Because I've done it so many times, I'm kind of... It's got a formula. It's got like a fixed list of things to do. And you can put those things into a list and you can tick them all off as you go along. So it's not too... I don't find it too stressful in the way that maybe, you know, deep cleaning a room would be, or going and like servicing a bicycle or any of it. It's just... There's a lot of moving parts. And there's a couple of them that you need to sync up with, you know, making sure that you get your internet as fast as possible, and setting up the place in exactly the way you like it. But I think that there's a lot of good things that can happen. Like there's a lot of reward that you can get while doing that process of moving house. It
was and still is to a certain extent incredibly stressful. And that's not just because, you know, it upsets routine, it upsets all the things that you've learned to live with and all the places that you are, and, you know, where to even today. Every day I go outside for a bit of a walk around just to stretch my legs and just get away from the computer and have some outside time and reset my brain, right? I knew my route in the old place. I knew where I could go. It was automatic. I had to find a new one today. Now, you know me. I'm quite happy to go off around the country and go walking places I've never been before. It's, you know, we've gone off and done interesting explorations. But this is my day-to-day walk, the one that I should just be able to do. And I couldn't. Oh, that's upset my brain. Yeah.
What about? I don't want to talk this into therapy hour, but what like specific? Because I see this completely from the other perspective. What about it upsets your brain?
This is the thing. So I grew up moving. That it's inbuilt to me. I went to 13 different secondary schools, for God's sakes. You know, I lived on every continent apart from Antarctica. You know, I've only, you know, been in, you know, white English majority countries for the last 13 years. But I've now lived in London for longer than I've lived in any one place ever. I'm not sure whether or not that makes me a Londoner. I'm not sure. But are you playing with a thing from... Yeah, I found 5 of those whilst packing. So we have a lot of ice cream to claim. Anyway,
excellent in an audio format. There was a restaurant which I'm not going to plug because they don't pay me. And it's sort of affordable steak restaurant. And at the end, instead of sort of selecting from a dessert menu, you can select They just sort of come to your table and they give you a token, and you can exchange that token at the door for ice cream. Lovely little idea. Keeps the desserts easy. It means you have to clean out the ice cream machine regularly on their place. But apart from that, the ice cream is pretty good, I would say.
Not bad, actually, yeah.
Like I've never had a bad one.
The problem is,
you don't always want an ice cream. So you just keep this token, and I collect them because they're quite cute. And they're a good fiddle because my desk is full of fiddles.
That's the thing that I haven't replaced is all of my fiddles. And I think that's what the problem was today, is that I was looking around for, like, where's my fiddle? It's like, no, it's not there. Ah! And so I was there playing with a pair of scissors. As all of your parents told you, don't play with scissors. And I'm there playing with a pair of scissors because it's the only thing to have. Anyway, no. Moving around. It's a case of I always had at least one thing, one habit, one thing I could do that would center me, would give me place and purpose. And since, well, I think I blame COVID for this, that you're allowed out once a day for some exercise thing. I built into my brain is I go out at least once a day for some exercise. And I had a routine, I had places I went, and it was always the same thing. I always saw the same thing. And I'm a fucking project manager. I can deal with change. This is literally my job. But there's that little autistic part of my brain that goes, no, you have to have one thing that is the same. Sometimes it's the same meal. Sometimes it's the same conversation. Sometimes it's the same music or the same texture or the same t-shirt or the same... For me, it was the same walk I did every day, which sounds incredibly boring. And I could deal with it. When I was away from home for a month or two at a time, when I lived with Sam for a bit, I just found a new walk. That was fine. But, so
it's kind of linked to the idea, I guess, of loss then.
I think maybe it is.
Because, and maybe because this is just the way I am, I see it from the opposite way. There are things I like in the world. I love my hula hoops, love my fish and chips or whatever. And if tomorrow they stopped making original flavour hula hoops, or, I got a weird, very niche condition that meant I couldn't eat them again or whatever, or something changed in my life where something that brought me comfort I couldn't have anymore. There wasn't like that constant thing just sort of went in an instant. I think I would be fine with it.
Yeah, probably.
More than I'd be fine with it, I think I would very quickly see it as an opportunity to find a new thing that brings me joy, that becomes that comfort blanket that I have. It's much more of an opportunity for me, these kinds of things, than it is a sort of thing to be sad and to be lost in, grieving about. Just because I see no point in the grieving, why not just take the opportunity where it comes? And I know that I'm not common in this view. People, when they lose something that they love, when they get rid of the Crystal Pepsi, you're going to grieve. But
well, you say that. I didn't overly grieve when my father died, and one could argue that that's a more significant thing than Crystal Pepsi. But I get where you're coming from. I wouldn't say it's so much grieve. It was one change on top of a lot of changes. That was the straw in the camel's back, right? It was just the one thing. I was out walking and I went, I can't do the walk I normally do. I have to switch my brain on. This is my time when I switch my brain off. I can deal with it. It's fine. Tomorrow I'll go and do a walk. Tomorrow I'm in the office, but it won't be a problem. But it was that one thing that made me think, I've had to go through the delight of talking to agents and dealing with landlords and sorting out deposits and all of those additional stresses on top of the rest of life.
Yeah. Yes, it is, and it is very much that. I can only offer as much empathy and sympathy as I can. Having, there was a situation that affected me that meant I effectively had to leave the place that I had been living in for 5 years in a week. I had to pack my shit and leave in a week. And I had to find somewhere else to live in that week. And I also had work. So that was kind of the proposal I got given on Monday. And basically by Sunday I had to be out. No ifs, no buts. And that was, I think, a very stressful time. That was one of the few times where, when moving house, I felt fully, sort of not fully behind the wheel, and relied a lot on other people to help me out with that.
Yeah.
But that's not the common sort of experience when moving house for millennials. Certainly, we are being shoved out because of our landlords wanting to sell the property or some other reason.
Or rent by 40%, yes.
Yeah. It's all right. They've got to live somewhere.
Yeah.
It's certainly something that's common to people of our generation, is that we move a lot more than anyone else, I think, just because of the nature of the fact that so many of us have to rent. But I certainly, ignoring that one time that it was horrendously stressful, all the other times I've seen as huge opportunities. And really, it didn't take me much, from that horrendous time. It didn't take me more than a few weeks to be like, okay, well, this is a chance for me to have a, great reset in my life and work things out. And it's always been that every time. Moving to London, it was the great reset for me from living in Cheltenham. The same for moving in with my now ex when I moved in with them. It was like, oh, this is a chance to change, just live in a house, do things. So all these sorts of moves were never that bad. But I think it's just that I'm slightly more at either end of the bell curve or whatever it is when my experience with change. And I've not met a huge amount of neurodiverse people. I've met quite a few, but I've not met anyone that has the same attitude towards change that I have. There's a very sort of welcoming, we'll work it out and it'll be fun. That change is stimulating and enjoyable.
Yeah, and that's generally the position I take is, you know what, it's a change. Let's get on with it. Let's see what happens. Let's try and find the positive in this. And I have tried to do that in all of this. I think part of this is just down to a certain stressful reaction to the whole moving process of moving with people.
Simon, you can't badmouth your housemates on the phone.
It's okay. But anyway, so it's interesting you said about people of our age, and I found a few studies on this. Is that on average, and we're looking in sort of the global West and global North, so sort of Europe and America, millennials were found to move as often as once every 2 years. Gen Xers every 5, and baby boomers were often staying in the same place, and this is taking the whole sort of things, between 6 and 12 years. But what's interesting is that the boomers generally, when they moved, were upgrading homes that they owned. The millennials, let's have a look at this, 73% of them were renters. Now, in Europe, renting is much more of a normal thing. There are people who get 10-year tenancies, 20-year, 30, 40-year tenancies. It's much more normal for a lot of people.
In Europe, they have rent control.
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on, isn't there? Whereas, unfortunately, we have a certain unregulated market here, certainly in the UK, and I know friends in the US who complain of this as well, whereby, unfortunately, because we are younger people, we are discriminated against because we are seen as a wealth extraction point for rich boomers who own too many houses. We unfortunately we could say an awful lot about this, but let's focus on the neurodivergent aspect of it, because if you are someone under 40, you have had to move house more than a few times. You're aware of all of the stress of having to do changing your driving license and sorting out loans and deposits and all of that delight. I mean, I'm very lucky. My company gave me a loan to pay off the deposit for the house. Which is very good of them. There's not many organisations that do that, and I will now spend the next year paying that off out of my payslip. But the point is that that's not something which a lot of people have access to, so you have to then rely on things like family, friends, savings, credit cards to pay for your deposit, which adds that extra level of pain and tension. And I think that I'm going to go with the autistic aspect of this, and unfortunately, I know it's a stereotype, but change is painful. It requires more processing power and thinking time and your ability to self-soothe. And that can just make it all that little bit more distressful. It's not just, the fact that you have to find a new house. It's dealing with the people that you have to talk to when finding that new house.
Yeah, there's a lot of, certainly in the first 30 days of a new property, there's a lot of context switching that you kind of have to do. Yeah. But for example, you might say, right, after work this evening, I'm going to sort all the vehicle stuff. So that's your V5C, your driver's license, and all this kind of stuff. And the first day you get back from home and you start doing that, and then you realise, okay, well, this is a post V5C, so I've got to go and fill out this bit of the form and then get a letter. Well, I don't have any. I've got to go to the shop to buy myself a letter and a stamp, and then I've got to go and post it in. Mm-hmm. And say for your driver's license, the same thing applies. You've got to go send it in, cut it up, all that kind of stuff. And so now this small task of, I should probably be able to just do this online. Nope, you've got to go out and do something that you got to go to the post office. Well, tough. It's after work and it's closed. So you context switch to something else. Pick another task that you've got to do. Well, okay, I'll sort out all of my addresses. I can do that online. We can do about half of them online.
As
A
it
lot of
turns
places, a lot of places don't make it easy. It took me, actually, I have only just, after a year and a half, completely changed all my addresses recently, because there are 2 addresses in Barclays' system that they hold, and they didn't update both of them when I asked them to, causing some minor payment errors, issues, not errors, which I ended up with me having to call them and sort it out. But yeah, it's just, unless you know to ask for that, you will discover a year down the line that no, you can't use your credit card on this website because it's got a confusion over which is your actual address.
Yes. That was
And then
yesterday was arguing with banks about where I now live.
But to offer some practical advice, I slightly begrudge doing this. There is a very useful website which I'm going to plug called goblin.tools. And that website has got loads of neurodivergent adjacent sort of tools, things to help people that are neurospicy. And one of the tools it has is a to-do-izer that uses ChatGPT, I think, or certainly a large language model to auto-magically generate you task lists for a task. So if your task is to move house, you could say, move house. What do you need to do? And it'll break it down, and then break it down. And you can auto break down each individual step into the sub-steps. And it'll pull out the typical things, stuff like update your bank, update your vehicle details, do your internet, do your water bill, your heating bill. It'll give you like a nice little prompt list that you can work down. And if you're in a place where you can work, we can print that off. Absolutely do it. To see in the first month you start working down the sheet, or even, and I'd say this unironically, get yourself some gold stars.
Oh, goodness me, yes.
Use the stars to mark off the big tasks. Because boy, does that feel good to wake up in the morning and start seeing more and more stars. Like, reward yourself with what you would give a child, because we've all got children. It's the same brain. Right. You don't just not like stars because you're an adult. And if you do, I feel bad for you. I have a
whiteboard. I have written up all of the tasks I need to do, and I have some stickers which I'm putting on it.
Precisely.
Which I realise, as someone who is 34, sounds a bit much, but it does work, because
get yourself down Raymond's and get some stars.
Yeah, honestly, like yesterday, whilst I was escaping the bleach fumes of cleaning the old house, because bleach, I was like, I'm going to take 5 minutes. And I had a list of people on my phone, important people. I went, right, okay, tell you I have moved house. And like, right, this is a new address. Just do it. And it's done. And then do I have to think about it? And then I have to deal with all the follow-up questions from various family members going, oh, I didn't know you were moving. It's like, I told you, please don't ask more difficult questions. I don't need to explain to you that I've moved house.
Yeah, that is actually a very good point. It does require a little bit of empathy to think of people that are close to you. Like, what information do they need to know apart from just your new address?
Yes.
They need to know the dates when you're moving. They need to know how that affects the relationship you have with them. Does that mean that you can't go back to the house now if you used to, hang out at their house?
As easily or as quickly, yes.
Yeah, they then need to update the details in their thing, and you will discover very quickly that they don't do that.
No.
And they forget to, and they turn up at the wrong house. That is a common thing that I've experienced. Certainly when moving intra-London, where somebody has turned up at the wrong house and I've gone, I don't live there. I told you this. Did you not? No?
Yeah.
Okay. But you have to be sympathetic and empathetic in those scenarios, and always think and make it. You can't control other people, but the thing I would advise is always try and make it as impossible as you can for them to get it wrong.
Yeah, well, yes. Give people as much information as possible.
Yeah,
and I would put a big asterisk next to as much information as possible. Yes. Give them the right amount of information in the right way for them. Think very carefully about how would they need to receive that information. I kept it short and clear, which was, hi, I've moved house. This is my new address.
Good. That is a good way to do it.
They didn't need to know the ins and outs. They didn't need to know the fact that it's got better parking or solar panels. They didn't need to know why I moved addresses, because the landlord either put up the rent by £1,500 a month, or wanted to sell it because he's just retired and wants more money. Yes. The house I was in was not worth an extra £1,500 a month. I don't think it was worth £500 less a month, but that's another matter entirely. So we had to find something else. But it's just, is change. I'm very good at change. I manage change. When it is an unmanaged change, I think that's what really hit me hard. Is that every time I've ever moved before, it's always been, okay, with one exception, it has always been my choice. It's always been up to me to decide where I'm going and when. The only other time I've been forced to move was, like I say, when my father passed away and I had a whole thing with university and I had to move house fairly quickly. But I had support there. I had help and I had other people around me who went, okay, yeah, fine, we understand what's going on. We're going to help you with this transition. We've found you another place you can go to. Every other time I've moved, it's always been at my choice. So, a little bit traumatic, right? And I think for most people it'd be, oh, for God's sake, there's lots to do. But when you are autistic or ADHD and all the rest of it, and you know you've got this great long task of things to do, I had to pack. I had to face doing the packing and starting that task. Once I've started the task, I'm great, I'm fine. And once I had started it, half the house was done in a day. Fine, easy. Building up the emotional, spiritual, whatever spoons to get started on it. Yeah.
And I would advise, anyone that is neurospicy, if you have a big task like this, there's nothing wrong with saying to the people that are close to you and that regularly interact with you, hey, I've got to move house, so I'm going to be a bit more irritable because I've got to do a lot of packing. And if and a lot of them, if they're very good friends, they will say, well, let me know and I will do what I can to help you. But knowing that the answer may well be just leave me the F alone for a bit while I work this out. It may be these, sometimes you need them to come with you and hang out at the pub for a decompress. That might be the thing that they need to do to help you. But certainly don't suffer in silence on these things. Just say, I need a little bit of help.
Yes. And in fairness, I did that, and there was a few of us went out to go and see a show last week, and that helped me an awful lot. It gave me a place to decompress and to do stuff. But for a lot of things, I put out of offices on my work account, including the fact saying I'm currently dealing with some personal stuff, moving house. I will be delayed getting back to you. If you have any major issues, talk to this colleague or that colleague. On my volunteer stuff, I just put a flat out, I'm away. Don't talk to me for a week. I told a whole bunch of people, I'm going to be off grid for at least a week because I need to focus on moving house. And I shrunk down any social circle I had to the few people I actually know, trust, and love and all that kind of thing, so that I could conserve the very small amount of energy that I had left for people I, genuinely need to keep in my life, as well as deal with the whole, utilities and new house and keys and handing things over and cleaning things. Holy sod, I've spent about 30 hours in the last few days cleaning.
It's that interesting balance where you feel when you clean, certainly when you're leaving house, you've got to do, everyone is forced, unless they buy the problem out, to deep clean. And I would wager if I got a room of 100 people, whether it be neurodivergent or not, only a small handful of them have ever really experienced the need to do regular deep cleaning of any place. It is a lot more cleaning than you think it is. It takes a long time to deep clean a simple shower bathroom.
It really does.
It really does. You have to, deep cleaning, for reference, deep cleaning a regular shower bathroom means one of the steps is applying bleach solution to every tiled surface in that bathroom.
Yeah.
At one point. And cleaning the grout and cleaning every single drain area, scrubbing everything. I mean, you don't have to scrub grout. Here's a secret: you can get grout cleaner. You just apply it and walk away, and then come back with a mask and open windows.
It's harder when it's an internal bathroom with no windows.
Yes, in that case, you die.
Yeah, in that case, it was bleach, scrub, go outside and recover from the fumes for a bit, and just go back.
Did it have like a vent?
Yeah, the vent was broken, which is something we told the landlord over a year ago. And then when he came to do the handover, made a fuss about it. It's like, we told you about it. No, you didn't. Here's the email. We told you about it.
Enjoy your black mold, sir.
I didn't notice that.
Whoops. And then you would have said, well, you would have noticed it if you came and did your yearly inspection, which you are due to do in the contracts of basically every single contract.
Let's not start on that because it's just not cricket, right?
No. Let's not. Let's probably cut that.
Well, no, because most landlords just first against the wall when the revolution comes. That's going to be the cold open. Let's just say it's just me saying that we're going to shoot landlords. Anyway,
landlords got to live somewhere. They've got to have a name and address
in their own home, and anything they own can be taken as 100% tax and bought out by the council at 10% of whatever the market value is, because that's the actual value of the house when you look at the bricks and mortar. I'm sounding quite angry there, aren't I?
Yeah. I feel like this is becoming more of an event.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we?
Yeah.
Have
As I normally do, I went to look to see if actually there was any interesting literature or studies or anything on the autistic experience of moving home. I found one study. One. It was a PhD study done by a very lovely person over at King's College London. Effectively, they did it as a literature review. They wanted to understand the experiences of autistic adults when moving to a new home. They conducted what I would say is an incredibly thorough search of hundreds of research databases and journal articles and books and everything else. They couldn't find a single study that directly examined the process of moving homes for autistic adults. They found 7 studies that provided a certain amount of insight into independent living and leaving the parental home. I don't know about you, but I left my parental home at 16, 17. I'm 34. What's that got to do with me? They found one study within that where they'd actually talked to autistic adults. And there was an interview where the authors found that, autistic individuals and their parents, can you see where I'm going here, highlighted the benefits of individual living and greater autonomy and the ability to make decisions for oneself. Basically, it boiled down to there needs to be a lot more work done on this. The outcome, I suppose the summary of this paper was there is no research currently out there which examines the actual process of moving homes for an autistic adult. And they suggested that studies are needed to illuminate this crucial transition point. There has to be some kind of research that comes into looking at what this process is and how to help improve the transitions for autistic people. You highlighted a fantastic website, goblin.tools, and I'll stick it in the show notes, which just helps you to list out some of the tasks you have to do. But even for non-autistic people, facing moving home is a major milestone. There is an awful lot of time and effort and thought that needs to go into it. It's incredibly tiring. And if you've got to do that on top of normal life, and you're autistic and dealing with masking and people and the weird and wonderful things that neurotypicals put on life that says you have to act in a particular way, which just doesn't make sense, you're going to burn out. You're going to get stressed to all hell and back. You're going to forget to do things. You're going to have issues where your bank forgets to change one account and a year later you're still having trouble getting to pay stuff. Do you know what the easiest thing for me to change was when I moved house?
No, what was it?
Kew Gardens.
What was your membership location?
I sent them in a quick email saying, hey, I've just moved house to here. I would still like to be a member. 10 minutes later, they emailed me back and went, yep, it's all updated for you. We wish you the best of luck. Let us know your new address. Do you know what they did? They sent me a plant. It arrived today.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's adorable.
Very sweet.
Plug for Kew Gardens. Both Simon and I absolutely fucking love that place. It's just not. I realise as I'm saying this, I'm asking our listeners to go and touch grass. Please go if you are London based, or even if you are roughly close to London. Like a day out in Kew Gardens is great. It is a nice place. You can walk around and see the gardens, and they go once a quarter if you really like it, because it's different every quarter because you've got the full season. It's a lovely place to go out with yourself, with the family, with a friend, and just have a little bit of a walk around. I've never felt so good about a day, if that makes sense, because there was no excess, there was no getting drunk, there was no overexerting myself on a stupidly long walk, and I wasn't bored. It was lovely. Do Kew Gardens.
Finding that same ironwood.
Yes, and it's also extraordinarily good for neurodivergent people. Generally, I would say it's just a low stimulation, nice environment to be in. You like the greenhouses or the heated tropical houses are quite humid, and sensory can be a bit more challenging, but really you can just walk out. They're not stopping you. The doors are always close by. There isn't like some kind of maze that you're going to get stuck in and have panic attacks in. It's just designed for people to have a good time.
It really is. So there you go. We are a pro Kew Gardens podcast. Join a union and trans people have rights, etc. That is all. This is what we're standing by here, is plants are good. But yes, they were the easiest. Private Eye was also very easy. I just rang them up and said, hey, I've moved. And they went, great, where's your new address? My bank, oddly enough, were incredibly helpful. I went onto the app and it went, oh, you need to speak to us. I'm like, oh God, that means I have to go into the place. It's like, oh no, press this button and telephone them.
Go into the place. Simon, have you read the news? They're closing down literally every bank branch in the entire UK.
It's like the closest branch I could go into would be in like London Bridge. So
yeah.
Look,
you can't have banks. You can't have the post office. You can't have a train place to buy your tickets.
Don't get me started.
We're transitioning to machine-based living where nobody actually has any jobs.
Unless you're the Prime Minister and your father-in-law's company gets £1 billion contract on new gas fields, and then what happens 2 months later? You give licenses for new gas fields. Anyway, not talking about government corruption here. That's for other podcasts. No, I rang up. So, like within the app, it said, "Right, we just need to speak to you." So I pressed the button, and it rang through. And I spoke to a nice, Scottish person who said, "Oh, you've moved house." I went, "Yes, here's the new address." They said, "Have you done this?" And they told me the list of things I need to think about. I went, "Oh, it might be useful for you to think about doing this. Do you have any other banks that you bank with? Because we can tell them for you as well." So it turns out a whole bunch of the banks now share information about stuff like that. So if you have, let's say you're at, Lloyd's, and you have a Halifax account as well, they can tell each other about it. So that's one less thing to worry about. They'll share that information. Now, there's a certain sort of big brother thing going on there, which might be terrifying in some ways, but also it's one less worry for me to think about. I have to tell 3 or 4 different organisations.
Yeah. I mean, they're obviously going to tell each other about ISIS because you're only allowed one. But it's very nice to see banks starting to work together, at least, on these sorts of things, and doing effectively a bit of citizens' advice, because ultimately it benefits them, right?
It does, yes.
And while the guy on the end of or gal on the end of the line might be, or non-binary pal, on the end of the line is just sort of regurgitating from a script, I imagine. That's still helpful. That's still free advice, and you can't turn down free advice in 2023. Certainly when it's coming from the other thing that's holding your money.
Mm-hmm.
Another good resource is Citizens Advice. They will help you potentially on what to do when moving house and advise you about what things to think about at least.
Oh yes, absolutely, and also Shelter, the charity, have some really good resources on their website which are well worth looking into.
Yeah,
I think. Sorry.
The one thing I think that almost every single person forgets when they move house, and I will say this is for some free advice, is your pension. Your pension is held by a company that doesn't get address updates, and they are always forgotten about. They are probably sending pension letters to your previous address with the details of how much is in your account. Go back, check that your pension letters are sent to your current address. So I've forgotten it 3 times on the trot now, and when I tell other people, they go, "Oh no." It's funny to watch it every time. Your work does manage your pension, but they will often not tell your pension provider that you have changed address. That is up to you. You need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I despite the fact that work gave me the loan to get for a deposit, I still had to tell HR today that I'd moved house, and they're the same ones that processed the thing when I told. So yeah, you have to double, triple, and quadruple check things like that. Changing my driving license, which if you're in the UK is free to do when you move house, by the way, because it's a legal requirement that your driving license is correct. And my V5, that was an online thing, and it's all linked to my passport, so I didn't even need to upload pictures or anything. It was just done. It took me 10 minutes of just confirming details. Fine, easy. Sorting out things like voter registration with the local council. Sorting out things like, how long is it going to take me to get to work from my new house? Because I have to have a new route to walk to a new station, to get on a different train that goes a different route into Waterloo. These are all things I think about and plan. And tomorrow is the first time I'm going to be going to my office from my new house. And so it's all going to be new and interesting. And I can see the benefit that I quite like that new thing, that new challenge, that new, I wonder how long it's going to take. I know I'm going to be at the station 10 minutes too early because I will end up, planning and plotting these things. But I guess the kind of thing I wanted to say really for this, and this has been like therapy for me. So I'm sorry, listeners, if that has just sounded like I've just vented for half an hour. But that stream of consciousness that you or your friends or your family who are autistic and might be facing moving house will kind of be going through. So that level of empathy that you might give to a normal friend or colleague or someone who's moving house, if they are neurodivergent, they might need that like an extra 50% worth of empathy and thought. And frankly, if they go quiet for a week, that's fine. give them that space. They may need it. But also, if there's someone you talk to quite regularly, just drop them a quick message and say, hey, I know you're moving house. I know it's stressful. If I can help in any way, let me know. And just leave it at that. I think that is one of the nicest things you could possibly do.
Good point. Well made.
So I think I've vented enough about having to move house. I've still got a lot of work to do to unpack everything that's now been packed. And I've already thrown away a box load of stuff because I'm just going through. Because, whilst you're packing, and I got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. Whilst unpacking, I went, I don't really want this book. I don't really want this pair of shoes. I don't really want whatever it is. And
You've Mary Kondoed.
Well, yes, but everything that I own has brought me joy of some description. It's just what level of joy it's
No. It's does it still bring you joy? That's the point. Has it brought you joy in the last 6 months? Has it brought you joy in the last year? Does it constantly bring you joy?
But yes, tell you what. Let's talk about something more fun. Festival.
Yeah, festivals.
So you dragged me along. I say dragged. That sounds bad. You told me it would be fun, and I went along with it to my very first festival a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Which I have to admit, I've been to a few festivals in the past, but I've always worked at festivals in the past. Partly just because of the way my personal neurology is that once I get above a certain number of people, trying to be part of the crowd is stressful. And so I've always ever gone along in a capacity, so I've been working in some description, being there as a volunteer maybe, or as a, back in many, many thousands of years ago, as a nurse, or working bars, or part of the events team, whatever it may be. So I've been to some of the really big ones in the UK. I've been to Glastonbury, I've been to Reading, I've been to Leeds, I've been to Download more times than I'd like to count. Being woken up at 11 o'clock in the morning by My Chemical Romance when you're trying to sleep, no bueno. But I've never actually been to a festival as a punter. And as an autistic person, that's kind of it's a lot.
Yes, it is. Can I take a break from here? I just need to grab myself a quick bite. I'll be right back.
Sorry.
Sure.
I'll just, sit here with a glass of wine and talk to Craig. Future Simon, put some kind of musical interlude here.
Oh yeah, I'll grab some ice cream.
Well, I've just been playing with the soundboard, and I found this one.
Wait, what? Why is that on the? Why is that on the soundboard?
Because it's. It turns out.
Wait, where's the soundboard? Open soundboard.
That's not things.
Oh, so you can just add them. Nice.
Yeah, only 5.5 seconds worth though. Whereas the bot I built could play significantly more, but it still means I can, start talking.
Pull that down a little bit. Try again.
Is it quite loud? Is it? Oh, you're doing it now! Hooray!
Yeah. What the fuck is dish spoon?
The dish ran away with the spoon.
It's so many, many thousands of years ago, in around episode 8, Kim and I decided to do a little bonus episode because we kept talking about spoons. And somebody sent us a message going, why do you keep talking about cutlery? So we did a bonus episode about what spoons are. And it's a measure of energy. If, listener, you've not heard it, it's well worth listening to. It's a nice little 10-minute extra episode.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I've discovered I'm a member of the EVE Online Discord. And EVE Online has some sounds. Specifically, it's got some really powerful sounds for losing shield, losing armor, and then losing hull. I will. What do I find on YouTube for you?
Oh dear. We're going to get EVE Online sounds. I apologise now.
I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to send it to you for afterwards.
I look forward to this.
It's I set it as an alarm, as a ringtone for my phone. The combination of them, sort of three, because they kind of ramp up in sort of intensity.
Right.
And I got a number of looks from people who thought like a government alert had gone off, because it genuinely is a terrifying sound, especially if you play it to somebody that plays EVE, or if your phone goes off around people that play EVE. You can see the panic in their eyes appear. It's a pretty triggering sound. It's it's an excellent example of good sound design in gaming.
Right.
Yeah. I will save it for you. I'm not going to play it because it's pretty horrendous, but I'll save it for afterwards.
I shall look forward to it.
But yeah, the EVE Online Discord soundboard has these as playable soundboard.
That seems a little more
Cool.
dubious.
Yeah, I like dubious Kuro.
I know Dube's Kuro is a good one. I've occasionally used that to basically just sort of do things.
Call out guests.
Occasionally, yes. I mean, I yes. Occasionally, I have just dropped something there going, let's just do a little more dubious, because we do like our Kuro. But so festivals.
Festivals.
I'll let you finish your ice cream first. That's
Okay. No. Festivals. Festivals do come in many shapes and forms. The festival that exists within the British psyche, as when you say to the man in the pub, "I went to a festival," the thing he pictures is one of two things: Reading and Leeds or Glastonbury. And Glastonbury is pictured as a sort of middle class festival that's got a bit too big and is quite wholesome. Everyone realises it's a music festival and you go there primarily for the music. But Glastonbury has a little bit of that sort of feel of community and as one of my friends says, what was it, yogurt weaving about it.
Oh yes, people who sit in yurts and knit yogurts.
Yes, it's got a little bit of that about it. It's not that much like that's not the focus, but it's some that's the kind of vibe that they're trying to get. Yeah. Whereas Reading and Leeds is a music festival where you go with your mates and you get drunk or high and listen to music. And that's basically it. It's a big party that lasts for days. Now, all festivals, if they want to continue, have to push the idea that they are sustainable and good for the area and community and not just a destructive place where people take loads of chemicals and alcohol and destroy it and while listening to music entirely too loudly.
That does sound a little bit like the coronation to me.
Wouldn't like to comment. And Reading and Leeds is probably the greatest example of that as a festival. They really aren't trying that hard to be sustainable.
They're not your Queen's Village Strawberry Fate. They're something a bit more robust.
No, yeah, absolutely not. So the festival that we took you to, I say you came along to with the group of friends that we have, was Noisley. A Noisley Festival of Arts and Music, I think, is the full title, but it's just Noisley. Is called such because it's from Noisley, basically.
Yeah.
Originally, it was on a site in a place called Noisley, and also because noise and music, get it, kind of goes together. The festival is what I would say, from an outside perspective, is it's got a lot of yogurt weaving in it, but that's not the focus.
It kind of did.
A surprising amount for people that have been to the big festivals.
I mean, for something that's rooted in like underground electronic music, it was quite. There were a number of workshops for getting in touch with Mother Earth and crystals. And
absolutely.
I'm not going to comment on the neurodiversity talk I went to.
The nice thing about a festival, certainly when it comes to those sorts of yogurt weaving things, is if you say that you're willing to do something and offer it up, and you've got like a grain of competence about you, they'll go, "Yep, absolutely, crack on. We'll give you the space. You do the thing, and if it's terrible, people will tell us, and we won't invite you back." But as long as it's not dangerous, basically you're fine. I think we stumbled onto a talk where it appeared to be that they were just having a little bit of a chat. A guy was kind of ranting a little bit, much like a podcast, about a topic that interested him without any sort of semblance of cohesion or planning.
Yes.
But that's not what Noisley is. That is just an effect of what, like, Noisley being a festival and encouraging you to consider yourself and do some yoga and like have a good time. This year, actually, they had the Psychedelic Society there, which increased that sort of yogurt weaving area in addition to their mind and body area being a bit sort of wider and bigger than it did previous years. More people offering, holistic massage, more people offering talks and interesting things to talk about, and all those kind of things. But that is not what Noisley is for a lot of people. The majority of people come to Noisley because it is an electronic dance music festival. We play electronic dance music and electronic dance music basically only. There is really not that much sort of live vocalized music there, if at all. There's a little bit. There was a rainstorm where we did some a cappella in a cafe tent, but I don't think that really counts.
The slightly overwrought drag queen that decided to lead us in Queen Best Hits at 4:00 in the afternoon whilst we were all drinking tea in the middle of a thunderstorm was an experience.
It was what I would say is exactly the kind of thing that makes Noisely quite fun.
Yes,
It is an EDM festival, but once you get there and you start experiencing it, I would call it a performance festival. And there are other UK performance-based festivals like the Elusive Festival and actually just specifically Circus E kind of performance festivals. But from a sort of classical performance, performance as an art, Noisely is that in droves. There is a performance stage where they do spinning acrobatics, comedy, a weird kind of not pub quiz. Yeah, it was a pub quiz led by a drag queen on a Sunday morning. They were giving out free shots. It's completely surreal. It's my favourite area of that festival, the performance area.
Oh, the performance area is great.
All of the stages, they all present you with they're small, it's in a forest. It's kind of a bit of a performance by the DJ. And that's kind of what makes it. It's a small-ish festival, a couple of thousand people. It's in a forest, which makes it feel even smaller. It's sort of, close in sort of community. There's no thousands and thousands of people. You're not waiting hours to get to the toilet. It's kind of just about enough people and just about enough facilities to get you through, and it's but big enough to give you a sense of sort of awe and wonder when you see some of the things that you see there. It's a really, really nice festival.
I have to admit, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and again, I realise that I'm a slightly unusual autistic in that I can deal with things like this. But again, I did some research because it's me. And a lot of people I was talking to, and I reached out to people on Twitter, on Reddit, on various other things. A lot of autistic music fans have a really tough time going to concerts, live performances, festivals, because of loud noise, dazzling lights, crowds. There's a certain overwhelmingness, right? Especially if you're hypersensitive to that kind of sensory input, to the point where it's about 80% of the people I spoke to, and I think it's about 4 in 5, so yeah, 80% of the 200 or 300 people or so who got back to me on various different formats, said that they couldn't go to them, or if they did, they felt socially isolated. And so one of the things I noted about Noisely is that they had a specific neurodiversity camping site. They did. It was a little bit hard to find on their website, and that's some of the feedback I gave them, was that they had an area which they called their accessible camping or whatever, where they had people there to give you more space and time and separate toilets and showers and a place to chill out if it all became a bit too much. That put them apart from even some of the big festivals like Reading and Leeds and Glastonbury that have made moves towards this but haven't fully created them yet. And one of the things I thought was quite interesting is I did a bit of research. There is because of that kind of music, I found a Bristol-based punk musician, Elliot Knight, who's autistic and uses music as a way to cope with day-to-day life. I found them actually because they have a band called Nervous Rex, where 2 of the 3 of them are autistic and the other one is nervous. Funny that. And they said that whilst music is kind of like an outlet for them, it's not smooth, and so going to a gig, even as the people who are making music, can be incredibly stressful for them, unless they're accompanied by someone, because that sensory overload, the loud music, the crowds, they have to stay back, they have to wear ear defenders or take breaks, and so that can make them feel a bit isolated from the other festival goers. Some of the venues apparently can be quite physically inaccessible. I mean, the one we went to, it was in a forest, in a thunderstorm. There were enough people who were struggling with the mud who probably didn't have any major issues, let alone someone who might have physical requirements to try and get through things. So it's not just necessarily regarding people like who are autistic, but those who've got, chronic fatigue or might have to use a stick or a chair to get around. Fine. There has to be a balance between locking people out and still having an experience, right? Yeah,
Noisely was actually quite good for that. If you have mobility issues, they were certainly staff driving people around in their buggies. I saw that quite a few times. That whether they were injured or whether they actually needed help being mobilised through what was some challenging mud.
Yes,
they were certainly providing some support. But that Noisely is one type of festival.
Yes,
it is a festival of performance music, of niche music that you probably haven't heard before. The biggest artists there weren't that enormous. If you know drum and bass, you probably know Black Sun Empire. If if you're familiar with house, and you actually are a fan of it, you might recognise some of the names that they had. But they're not pulling the largest names in the sort of touring calendar.
Yeah, I did look up Joris Vaughan, who played that closing set and has more than nearly 4 million subscribers on Spotify. So, not small.
We're not talking like these are, but that was the large, like the main, the main set. That was the final going home set where they put all the pyro on and they put all the fireworks and the confetti cannon and everything.
I did enjoy the fire and the confetti, and I mean, actually, the fire performance in the performance zone were very good. But going back to that festival experience thing, is that I guess the problem is because autism varies so much between individuals. I mean, you and I have a lot of things in common. We still have a lot of differences. It's very hard to create that sort of one-size-fits-all solution. But
Absolutely.
I think there are certain steps that can be taken. I think actually, having gone to Noisely as a punter and having worked at other festivals as a volunteer or as an employee, there are certain things which I think they do better. Some things which they could do better.
Yes,
providing earplugs, big old boxes of earplugs people can help themselves to. That's not great in terms of, like you say, sustainability, because they're bits of foam that go in the bin after you've used them for a couple of hours. I took some great advice, which was to buy some really good silicone earplugs, and they were great. They survived me all weekend. I still got them. I used them when I went camping the other week to drown out someone who was snoring next to me. I saw the face you made there.
No, the face I was making, dear listener, was not that you needed them.
No,
the one begrudge I will have of Noisely, and actually potentially the reason I might go back next year, is they certainly had the speakers turned down for being in a forest in the middle of nowhere. It was surprising. Unfortunately, fans of Black Sun Empire will be sad to hear that I took my earplugs out and didn't suffer at all while listening to the artist that is known for embodied by the phrase sonic assault. There wasn't any sonic assault going on. There was some really good drum and bass being played, but it was quite quiet relative to other festivals.
Decibels, yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to sort of talk about that is a good example of a British festival that is small. It does a lot of different things. It does a little bit of the yogurt weaving. It does a little bit, it does the music. It does performance. It kind of does everything in a little bit, which makes it quite nice with the unique atmosphere of it being a forest and not too many people. So it's a good place to go. And I'd recommend Noisely, if you've not been to a festival before and you are neurodiverse, it's potentially a good first place to give it a go and see where you are. I would caveat that with, I personally love overstimulation at festivals. Visual, audio, love it, because I have set myself up and I've got myself into the mindset of I want it. I'm here for that. I'm here for the fire show that they have every evening, where it's just mayhem on fire, where you're juggling a 12-foot cube.
To experience that, right? You've gone in knowing that you're going to experience that. Yeah.
And so setting yourself up and preparing yourself for this is going to be quite a lot and it'll be stressful, but ultimately I don't you can suffice yourself at a festival. You could just go back to your tent and sit there and it'll be quiet while the festival's going on for the most part. Nobody really hangs out at the campsite. Not at that festival anyway. And sort of relax. Or if you don't like the music, there's tea tents and stuff like this where you can go in a cafeteria setting or not cafeteria setting, in a sort of cafe room setting, and just chill out, listen to some hippie music, some live gentle jazz or whatever. And they did have different stages with funk and things that weren't just drum and bass and house. And so there was a lot of variety for you to pick from. You could pick your vibe and you could sit there for the entire day. There are people that go to the chill out stage and they basically sit there the whole time and then they come back. I know people that come to Noisely for psytrance and nothing else. They go to the psytrance stage and they do the final leaving thing. That's the whole festival for them. They don't come to performance. I've never seen them there. And so that's why it's quite a nice festival for that kind of stuff. But there are other festivals that you can do. You could try Reading and Leeds. I wouldn't advise it if you're neurospicy. It is quite a challenging festival from what I've heard. The volume of people and the variety of people widens the bell curve of challenge. You're more likely to come into confrontation that will be difficult. You're more likely to see things that are difficult to process and difficult to deal with at a festival like that. because of the sheer scale of it and the number of people and the complexities of doing supply chain and managing that volume of people, and more things will happen there. You will get fights at Reading and Leeds. It's just that big. That will happen.
Yeah,
I
think
deal with them, but it will still be challenging to be around.
Absolutely. I think going to a smaller festival, and again with friends, albeit that of the group we went with, I'd only really met maybe 5 of them before, so that had a certain extra challenge to me, but I think I weathered that relatively well. Go to a smaller festival. Honestly, if you are neurodivergent and you still want to actually go and listen to music live, do it. But find one of the small ones. Find one of the 10,000 or less people ones, because they're pretty well run, and you'll have a bit more space, and it won't be quite as challenging in terms of just the sheer number of people. Because that was the thing that worried me, was there'd be too many people, it'd be too much, and just be overwhelmed by being in large crowds. Actually, I managed to deal with it. Again, that might just be me, but I took the first day or so just to make myself walk around and do things and just sort of get into the vibe of the place and know where everything is. Because for me, I go into any new place, I always try and find the 3 exits. That's just a background thing for me, is I always know how to get out of the place. But it might help you to figure out where, like what says, nice cafes were. There was definitely one I went into a couple of times, which was a little bit like stepping into what I imagine San Francisco in the 60s was. There was a lot of sort of hangings and sitar music and people drinking specific teas and wearing long dresses and sort of wearing flowers and saying, "Hey, man." There was a whole sort of Berkeley vibe going on at least a couple of places. Not including the place we got stuck during the thunderstorm.
Yes. And it's slightly worth saying that there's a really good idea that's come out of festivals, something that I've learned from going to a festival. And it's adjacent to the people that take substances, particularly psychedelic ones. It's this idea of like harm reduction. And I think there's a lot that could be pulled from that and used by neurodivergent people, whoever you may be, to help yourself by doing some pre-harm reduction work for yourself. Mm-hmm. Prevent yourself from having a good time by doing the things that, setting up the things that you need so that it's a lot harder for you to have a bad time. Or when things are going wrong, you can easily give yourself you go somewhere you can have a good time. These are things like if you're having if you're tenting and camping and you've got your own tent, set it up, make sure it's nice and clean and sort of sorted in the way that you like it. And so if anything's a bit too much, you're not coming back to mayhem in your tent and having to deal with like having to find your torch in the dark. Those kind of like very simple things like that, taking an extra half an hour or a quarter of an hour. It's a festival. You've got the whole weekend. Take that extra 15 minutes to tidy your tent before you go down to the festival. That'll help you out greatly. But not only just that, just thinking, really listening to your body, taking the time to, when you do leave the stage to go to the bathroom, to go for a little bit of a walk and say, how am I feeling? Do I want to carry on doing that? Do I want to go back to that stage? Do I want to just wander for a bit around? Do a bit of a walk? Because the nice thing at a festival, it's quite big. You can just have a walk around the whole thing. And that can give you something to think. And you find, you might bump into your friends again and do other stuff. And the final one is that there is always, I believe, pretty much every festival of any size, people doing harm reduction care. Primarily, in a lot of cases, they're doing harm reduction for people who are having a challenging time on the substances they've consumed and they need support. That goes for if you have an accessibility need, if you are getting overwhelmed and having panic attack and you just need somebody to calm you down and talk, they almost always have places that are calm, relaxed, people that are often trained in how to de-escalate and to help you chill out, because they do, dealing with a panic attack is challenging. Dealing with a panic attack while you're high on acid is very, very challenging. But these people are trained and experienced in how to do that, and they do it very well in every case that I've ever seen. So go find whatever that is. The biggest charity in the UK that does it is called PsyCare. There are lots of other charities. When I went to a Swiss festival recently, I discovered that their equivalent of PsyCare is funded by tax.
Wow.
Your taxes go towards it.
That's a very Swiss thing to do,
which is very, very good. It means that they're very well funded and they offer a load of additional services. But yeah, at a festival, there will be a group of people that you can go to if you're worried. And even if you have no friends at all, and I have met some people at festivals that just went there by themselves. You can find friends if you're look at people that smile and you bond over having the same food and just sort of float around. It's something that can be really, really fun. Enjoy yourself. Don't take it too seriously. Don't overcommit and get upset when you miss the yoga. These kind of things will help you. Have a very laissez-faire attitude towards the festival. You're there, you're having a good time.
I think we come back to that whole sort of fail to prepare to fail thing. And as much as I'd like to feed that saying to pigeons, I think it does hold a modicum of truth. I think particularly for those of us on the spectrum, sort of embarking on those kind of potentially overwhelming escapades, diving in headfirst to that kind of festival world and considering what the scene might entail, what you might need to do, dealing with those, the food, the music, the bright decorations, the weather. I would say there's a lot of things just to think about beforehand, and like you say, it's that preparation thing. I mentioned the earplugs. Sunglasses, a waterproof jacket, or an umbrella because it's the UK. Think about ID and painkillers, anxiety meds, because I know one or two of our friends forgot to bring their meds with them and had a bit of a bad time because of that. One of the things which I had, and I know one of our friends brought with them, was stimming things, like both your hands, but also just like chewables. We're all very familiar with the fact that our meltdowns are not solely provoked by our surroundings. Things like energy levels and stress also play a part. I went to bed a bit earlier one night because I'd reached that point where I'd run out of spoons. I went, I really want to spend time with my friends, but if I do, I'm going to be ruined tomorrow. I'm just going to go to bed. And I did. Yeah. And then that meant I had a great time next day.
Absolutely.
So managing those kind of things and just sort of having that plot and that plan, I think really does help. And as you absolutely said, being able to take yourself out of the mosh pit or the crowd or whatever any one day, if you've ever been to, I don't know, Oxford Street on a Boxing Day sale, you know what I mean. It kind of feels like that sometimes. Everyone's very noisy and it's loud and it's everything's going on. That can be quite overwhelming for anyone, let alone just a neurodivergent person. But all of these places have spaces that you can move. I spent a good hour one evening with one of our friends, Burke, sat around a fire with a cup of tea in one hand and just sort of chatting and putting the world to rights as a man in a grass skirt kept putting wood on the fire. But that was a really nice time and it allowed me to recenter myself and then go back and really enjoy the rest of the festival.
Yeah. To loop back and to maybe close on an idea,
yes.
we started talking a bit about moving house, and one of the first thing that you want to do when you move house is make a space where you are, you will come back to and you feel happy.
Yes.
You give yourself a good time. So you work out, what do I need to have in this space to give myself a good time? Do I need to have a plant in view? Do I need to be looking out the window? Do I need to have drinks? Do I need to have fiddles on my desk? All these kind of things. And when going to a festival, I strongly encourage you to think about that as an idea. What do I need to do to at any time give myself a good time? Do I need to think about how I act? If that's doing something that you might not normally do, which is just walking away from your friends and going for a bit of a walk and letting them know that you're doing that. But that is one way that you can give yourself a good time, having sweets on you, to change things up a bit. Sweets can also be a great way to detract from a stressful situation with another third party. Offering sweets to some people that are causing problems is a very good way to diffuse that problem if it's, at the simmering stage. There are lots of different things you can do to have a good time.
But you're right, is having a sweet, having a sense thing. I think that's going back again to the house move thing. That's what I struggled with yesterday. I'm much better today because I've now set up my place, my space, still need to find all my stim things. Where's my plug socket gone? It's in a box somewhere. I'll find it.
3-pin.
Yes, a 3-pin plug because it's a great fiddle toy. It fits around my. Anyway, we've talked about this in the past. You're right. Knowing that you have space to go to makes virtually anything, I think, possible to deal with, even if they are intense sensory overloads, like going to a festival, or even for some people I know, going on the tube. The Jubilee line is very noisy. Travelling overseas and going to other cities or places. No, I think all of these things kind of help. But we've whittled on for a while now, so any final thought?
I think there's a lot to explore generally about festivals, and certainly I think the more spicy end of enjoying the overstimulation of the lights and sounds. I think there's something I'd like to talk about as my experience of going through it. And we will hopefully cover that in one of the
episodes. I think.
Let's do that. But yeah, I would say work out, if you want any homework for this week, is to work out what you need to do to give yourself a good time, and really consider that and be honest with yourself over what you actually need. You shouldn't feel bad doing those things and prioritizing those things because we all are useless if we're not in a good place to be able to help. I can't help if I don't help myself first. I must affix my own oxygen mask before helping somebody else. And that advice goes for setting up your room and going to a festival.
I think the one thing I kind of want to leave people with, and I'm sort of coming to the end of a particularly stressful couple of weeks, is if you can, focus on the positive things and decide on those things that you know you're going to need to help you when you're having a bad time. As Watt says, that safe space, any visual aids you might need, a picture on your wall, a view of the sky, a possession, a thing to play with, whatever that may be. Have those, build them into your new routine as soon as you can, and then when you do need them, you can go for them. And I think that's kind of a lesson we can take anytime we go outside the house, even in the workplace, at festivals, traveling to visit friends or families or whatever, is have a couple of things which you can always rely on. And that kind of goes for everyone, I guess, to an extent. How many people would be lost if they didn't have their mobile phone somewhere within arm's reach? That's a stim. It's a reassurance. It's a thing that 95% of people will reach for when they're bored, when they're lost, when they're lonely, when they just need to pick something up and fiddle with it and turn it over in their hands just to, have a thing. But yes. Anyway, thank you as ever to my wonderful co-host Watt for joining me, and hopefully I will edit this up into something semi-reasonable to listen to. And we hope to have another episode. Thank you very much. Have a very lovely weekend. We'll speak to you soon. Bye for now. Hello, this is Simon in post-production. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I apologise for the, frankly, terrible audio that I recorded with. I hadn't finished setting up my recording equipment when we did this episode, and it shows in the echo and just, frankly, poor recording. I apologise for that profusely, and hopefully now I've fixed it, so the next episode will sound much better and clearer than even some of our old ones. Anyway, thank you so much for listening as ever, and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.